Here comes a moment in every life when noise must fall silent, when chaos must make room for clarity. And in that rare stillness, something ancient begins to speak. Not with shouts, but with quiet conviction. A whisper from the ages, a voice of wisdom that once echoed in the minds of emperors and slaves alike. That voice is Stoicism. This isn't just philosophy. It's a manual for those who refuse to be ruled by circumstance. For those who understand, power is not in control over others, but over yourself. If you're ready to trade chaos for calm, reactivity for reason, and weakness for unshakable will, then lean in closely. These are the 12 Stoic laws that can, and will, instantly transform your life. The first law is simple, but seldom practiced. Control what you can, accept what you cannot. Most people drown in worry about things that are not theirs to govern. The weather, the opinions of others, the outcome of a meeting. But the Stoic sees clearly. The only thing you ever truly own is your inner response. And when you master that, when you learn to meet life on its own terms, without flinching, you become untouchable. The second law, turn obstacles into opportunities. Marcus Aurelius didn't ask the universe to remove problems from his path. Instead, he said, what stands in the way becomes the way. To a Stoic, hardship isn't a wall, it's a door. And every setback contains the seed of an equal or greater advantage. But only for the eyes trained to see it. Third, embrace voluntary discomfort. While the world seeks comfort and ease, the Stoic steps into discomfort willingly. Why? Because strength is not forged in comfort. It's built in cold showers, early mornings, and choosing the difficult thing when the easy one is right there. The Stoic trains himself not to suffer less, but to fear less. The fourth law is radical in its simplicity. You are not your emotions. Feelings rise and fall like the tide, but the Stoic remains grounded like a mountain. Anger, fear, envy, they're visitors, not masters. You acknowledge them, you understand them, but you never obey them blindly. Because if your emotions control you, then you are not free. Fifth, live as though you've already died. To the Stoic, death is not morbid, it is motivating. Seneca said, you act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire. But imagine waking up every morning with the full awareness. This could be your last sunrise. You'd waste less time. You'd speak more truth. You'd live more fully. And that's exactly the point. Sixth, virtue is the only true good. Forget money. Forget fame. Even health can vanish. The Stoic holds to one compass alone: virtue, courage, justice, wisdom, and self-discipline. These are the riches that no thief can steal. When a man builds his life around these pillars, he becomes a fortress, not a facade. Seventh, silence is strength. The Stoic doesn't feel the need to voice every opinion, win every argument, or prove himself constantly. He knows when to speak, but more importantly, he knows when not to. There is power in restraint, in withholding judgment, in observing more than reacting. Still waters run deep, and the Stoic stays still by choice. Eighth, you own nothing, everything is borrowed. Your possessions, your body, even the people you love. The Stoic practices a kind of sacred detachment, not to be cold, but to be free, to appreciate fully, without clinging blindly. Because he knows, to hold tightly to what must one day be let go is to guarantee suffering. Ninth, practice negative visualization. What if you lost it all tomorrow? The Stoic doesn't ask this to invite fear, but to sharpen gratitude. By imagining the loss of what he loves it more deeply. He hugs tighter, listens longer, appreciates sharper. Because he doesn't assume that tomorrow will offer the same gift twice. 10th, let your actions speak louder than words. Epictetus said, don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. The Stoic doesn't lecture, he lives. Integrity is not something he performs, but something he is. Even when no one is watching. Especially then. 11th. Don't seek to be understood. Seek to understand. In a world obsessed with broadcasting every thought, the Stoic listens. He asks questions. He chooses empathy over ego. Because the goal isn't to be right, it's to see clearly. And often, clarity comes not from speaking, but from truly hearing. 12th. Time is your most precious resource. Seneca wrote, "It's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." The Stoic guards his time like a warrior guards his post. He knows that every hour spent scrolling, complaining, or chasing shallow things is a piece of his life he'll never get back. So he spends each moment deliberately, as if it matters. Because it does. And now the choice is yours. These Stoic laws have endured for over 2,000 years, not because they are easy, but because they are true. They do not promise comfort. They promise clarity. They do not hand you pleasure. They hand you power, the kind that no one can take, but only if you live them. So, will you? Then live them. Not tomorrow. Not next week. No. Because the truth is, life doesn't wait for you to be ready. The world will keep spinning, storms will rise, people will come and go. But if you've built your life on these Stoic laws, you won't be moved. You'll walk through the fire without flinching. You'll speak calmly in the face of insult. You'll lose, and still not be defeated. You'll win, and remain humble. The man who walks the Stoic path doesn't shine like a lightning bolt. He glows like a steady flame. Quiet, constant, unyielding. And slowly, people around him begin to notice. Not because he preaches, but because he embodies a kind of peace that's rare in this world. A man who is not owned by fear, by greed, by praise, or by pain, is a man who owns himself. This is the true revolution. Not in politics, not in power, but in self-mastery. And perhaps the greatest Stoic secret is this. You don't need more. You don't need to become someone else. You need to remember what you already are. A mind capable of reason. A heart capable of strength. A soul capable of serenity in the midst of storms. So begin now. Let these 12 laws etch themselves into your daily walk. Not as rules you memorize, but as truths you live. When you rise in the morning, remember, you are not owed a single thing. Not time, not ease, not comfort. And yet, the moment you open your eyes, life has already given you everything. That breath you just took? That was a gift. How will you spend it? This is not the end. This is the beginning of a calmer mind, a stronger will, and a life that no longer reacts, but responds. You were not made for comfort. You were made for greatness. Not the kind that's loud, but the kind that endures. And the Stoic walks on. Quiet. Focused. Free. With every step the Stoic takes, there's no parade, no applause, only the quiet rhythm of a soul aligned with truth. He doesn't chase recognition, yet he commands respect. He doesn't fear death, and so he truly lives. He doesn't need to conquer the world, because he's already mastered himself. And in this mastery, something incredible begins to happen. The chaos of the outside world no longer shakes him. Where others crumble under pressure, he becomes more precise, more poised. When anger rises around him, he becomes still. When temptation seduces, he sees clearly. His compass isn't the trends of the day or the noise of the crowd. It's virtue, reason, and integrity. And perhaps the most remarkable part is that the Stoic does not see himself as extraordinary. He simply shows up, every day, for the battle within. Not with fanfare, not with drama, but with discipline. He knows the battlefield is not out there, it's here, within the mind. And every moment is another opportunity to either rule it or be ruled by it. When insulted, he practices patience. When praised, he practices humility. When struck by misfortune, he tightens his grip on wisdom and endures. Because he understands. The Stoic life is not about escaping pain. It's about becoming the kind of person for whom pain holds no power. And that's the kind of transformation no one can give you. No book, no video, no quote can do it for you. But they can point the way. And now you've seen the path. 12 laws. Timeless. Unshakable. Alive within you, if you choose to live them. So the question returns, soft but firm. Will you? Will you live a life governed not by impulse, but by principle? Not by fleeting emotions, but by lasting truth? Because if you do, you'll begin to notice something subtle but profound. You won't just change. The world around you will begin to respond differently. Doors will open. Distractions will lose their grip. And where there was once noise, there will be purpose. And then, perhaps years from now, when someone asks how you became so calm, so focused, so quietly powerful, you'll smile. Not because you found some secret, but because you remembered what the Stoics always knew. Wisdom is not rare. Discipline is not beyond reach. Peace is not a miracle. It's a choice, made not once, but daily, hour by hour, moment by moment. And now you know what to do. So get up. Stand tall. Walk the path. Quietly. Firmly. Like a Stoic. And as you walk, you'll begin to notice. You no longer flinch at the noise of the world. Someone cuts you off in traffic? You breathe. You let it go. You remain undisturbed. A plan falls through? You adjust. You adapt. You respond with reason, not rage. You begin to live less from habit and more from awareness, less from ego and more from essence. And slowly, the chains begin to fall away. The need to impress, the fear of failure, the grip of past mistakes. They dissolve, not because the world changed, but because you did, because you chose a different path, a higher path, the Stoic path. You begin to attract what you once chased. Respect follows you, not because you demand it, but because your presence commands it. People seek your calm. They lean into your words, not because you're louder than the rest, but because you're quieter, more centered, more real. And when storms come, and they will come, you no longer beg for calm seas. You become the one who rows, the one who steadies the crew, because you are the calm. You are the stillness that cannot be shaken. This is the transformation Stoicism offers, not overnight, but over time. Not through perfection, but through practice. Through returning again and again to the laws that guide the mind like stars guide the sailor. So, when you feel yourself slipping, return to the laws. When you feel overwhelmed, return. When victory tempts your pride, or failure threatens your peace, return. Return to what is eternal. Control what you can. Accept what you can't. Turn pain into power. Let virtue be your anchor. Because this is not just philosophy, it's a way of being. And every time you choose it, you become a little more free, a little more powerful, a little more you. You begin to realize. The Stoic doesn't live to escape life. He lives to meet it, head on. Fully awake. Fully present. Unshaken. And that, my friend, is the rarest kind of power in this world. You were born to wield it. Not someday. Today. So don't look back. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Don't wait for permission. Take a breath. Hold your ground. And walk forward. Like a Stoic. And as you walk forward, quietly, steadily, something within begins to shift. Not loudly, not dramatically, but irrevocably. You begin to recognize the stillness inside you not as a temporary state, but as your natural condition. The chaos of the world? It keeps spinning. But now it spins around you, not through you. You're no longer a leaf blown by the winds of circumstance. You've become the tree. Rooted, resilient, reaching upward, but anchored deep. And in that place, between resistance and surrender, you discover a sacred clarity. You don't need more. You need less. Less distraction. Less noise. Less grasping. Because everything you've been searching for, peace, strength, purpose, it was never outside of you. It was buried beneath layers of fear and forgetting. And Stoicism has simply helped you remember. The 12 laws weren't rules to follow, they were mirrors, each reflecting back the person you were always capable of becoming. The one who acts, not reacts. The one who leads without controlling. The one who speaks with purpose, or not at all. The one who finds meaning not in comfort, but in character. And now, the world begins to look different. Not because it's changed, but because you have. You see others trapped in cycles you once lived in, anger, addiction, approval-seeking, and you no longer judge. You understand. You've been there. But you've stepped out. Not above them, but beyond that old self. You've learned the art of choosing your response, no matter the pressure. You've learned the strength of restraint, even when provoked. You've learned to look hardship in the eye and say, "You will not break me. You will build me." And here's the paradox. The more stoic you become, the more alive you feel. Not numb, not detached, but fully awake. Present to pain, present to joy, present to the fleeting, sacred beauty of it all. You walk through your days with a kind of invisible armor, not to shut the world out, but to move through it wisely. Your relationships deepen, because you no longer demand perfection. Your work becomes focused, because you're no longer ruled by distraction. Your life becomes simple and powerful. Because when you follow these Stoic laws, not once, but daily, you no longer wait for life to deliver meaning. You create it. In every decision, every challenge, every breath. You realize that greatness isn't some explosive moment. It's found in repetition, in returning, in remembering. So you keep walking, not to arrive, but to become. And as the sun rises on another day, the voice of the Stoic within you speaks, not in words, but in silence, not in emotion, but in action, not in seeking, but in being. You are not what happens to you. You are how you respond. And now, you respond like a Stoic. And so, you continue, step after step, breath after breath, not towards applause or validation, but toward a quiet mastery of self. There is no finish line, no great climax, just a gradual unfolding of a deeper self. And perhaps that's the most profound transformation of all, because the more you live these Stoic laws, the less you talk about them. Not out of secrecy, but because you've understood something essential. Truth doesn't need to shout. Character doesn't need to advertise. Virtue doesn't need a stage. You begin to notice it in the smallest choices. In how you rise from your bed in the morning without complaint. In how you speak to someone who wrongs you with dignity. In how you sit with your thoughts in silence without running from them. These are the moments that shape a Stoic. Not speeches or ceremonies, just presence, practice, persistence. And as your days unfold, you'll see that this philosophy, this way of life, is not about becoming emotionless or distant. On the contrary, it deepens your humanity. You begin to feel more, not less. But your feelings no longer govern you, they guide you. You become capable of deeper love, not because you cling tighter, but because you appreciate more freely. You face loss not with denial, but with graceful acceptance. You endure suffering not by pretending it doesn't hurt, but by understanding that pain, too, has its place. You no longer chase moments. You inhabit them. Each sunrise becomes a lesson in gratitude. Each sunset, a reminder of impermanence. Each moment, a chance to practice what others only preach. And slowly, without fanfare, you become someone others look to. Not because you have all the answers, but because you carry yourself like someone who has learned to ask the right questions. What do I control in this moment? What is the most virtuous response here? What am I clinging to that I must let go? What would a wise person do now? And through that constant inquiry, you become something rare. A person who is calm in conflict, content in solitude, composed in success, and unbroken in defeat. People begin to feel it, in the way you pause before you speak, in the steadiness of your gaze, in the peace that seems to follow you like a shadow. You've become the kind of person who doesn't just walk through life, you leads by example. Not through control, but through clarity. Not through dominance, but through discipline. This is the quiet revolution of the Stoic. And it is only just beginning. Because now, others are watching. They see something in you, something solid, something still. They ask, how did you become like this? And you won't need to explain. Because they'll see it in how you live. And maybe, just maybe, they'll begin to walk the path too. Not because you told them to, but because the Stoic in you awakened the Stoic in them. And so the torch passes, not through noise, but through fire. Not in haste, but in endurance. Not with pride, but with purpose. You live. You embody. You endure. You become. And with each passing day, the world becomes a little less chaotic, and your soul a little more free. You were born not to be shaken by the world, but to steady it with your presence. And now you know, not just the laws, but the way. So walk on, as a Stoic, as a flame, as a force, unshaken, unmoved, unbreakable. And so, you walk, not to arrive, but to continue. The path beneath your feet isn't paved with comfort or applause. It's uneven, quiet, demanding, but it's real. And in a world drowning in illusion, real is everything. You begin to see how rare true composure is, how rare silence is, how rare strength is when it's not worn like armor, but carried like a sacred weight. You don't seek to dominate others, you've lost the need to, because the only conquest that matters is the conquest of the self. And you're winning that battle slowly, moment by moment, not by crushing your impulses, but by understanding them, not by running from fear, but by standing beside it and choosing anyway, not by pretending to be above pain, but by learning how to suffer with grace. There is a certain nobility in the quiet Stoic, a nobility that doesn't scream its presence, but whispers it through action. In the way you pick up what others drop. In the way you forgive before you're asked. In the way you work when no one's watching. In the way you meet loss with dignity, not denial. You become the living embodiment of a forgotten truth. That power is not in what you possess, but in what you can walk away from. That control is not domination, it's self-discipline. That peace doesn't come from avoiding storms. It comes from becoming the kind of person who can stand in the center of one and not flinch. And people will misunderstand you. They'll mistake your stillness for apathy, your restraint for weakness, your detachment for coldness. Let them. The Stoic does not explain himself to those committed to misunderstanding. He simply continues. And in that quiet continuation lies a power beyond recognition, a force that doesn't rise with applause, but with integrity. Because when the applause fades, When the spotlight shifts, when the noise returns, only one question remains. Did you live by your values, even when it cost you? If the answer is yes, then you are free. Free from regret. Free from dependence. Free from being anyone other than yourself. That is what the Stoics knew. That virtue isn't some abstract ideal. It's not locked in books or buried in temples. It's here, in your next breath, in your next decision, in your next act of courage. And so you keep walking. You don't run. You don't race. You don't chase. You walk, like a man who has nothing to prove, and everything to live. The world may not notice at first, but in time it will feel your presence. Because in a world that is burning with noise, distraction, and need, you are the fire that doesn't consume, but illuminates. You are not perfect. You are not finished. But you are becoming, deliberately, quietly, powerfully. And that is enough. Now go. Continue. And let the laws of the Stoic not just live in your memory, but in your footsteps.